Let me see here. Romania. Yeah, I could see myself in Romania. Romania seems pretty cool. What about living in Israel? Ooh, Israel. I don't know. That's no, 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 not Israel. Not Israel. Israel. Let me think about Israel. You see, I used to hang out with a lot of Jewish people when I was living in California. Every week I used to hang out with Jews. I had a lot of Jewish friends growing up, and there was this Israeli family that we used to hang out with, and I used to hang out with them at least once a week. Like no joke, we used to hang out all the time. And ethnically speaking, I'm Middle Eastern. My father's Palestinian. This family that I hung out with, the father was a Russian Jew, and the mother was a Yemeni Jew. She was an Arab Jew. And there was a very interesting mix in the family. So you could see a lot of Middle Eastern characteristics in how they acted, especially the mother. And there was a lot of things that I could relate with them. There was a lot of things that I could relate with them that they had, like how they were very hospitable and how they treated guests. It was very much like any other Middle Eastern household. They were very cool people. I think if Israel had a lot of people like that, I think Israel does have a lot of people like that. But I think if Israel didn't have like all the fanaticism, Israel would be a very cool place to be. But it has a lot of fanaticism that's increasing, not just on the Palestinian side, but also on the Jewish side. They are Jewish extremists who are very vicious, and the thing is that, and you know what, I actually wanted to talk to you guys about this very interesting topic, and this really fits into the topic of birth rates and the importance of having kids. So important. It's so important if you want your ideas to be perpetuated in the future. I mean, you have to have kids. Like, you really have to have kids. The moderates of Israel, the people who aren't like extreme right wing or neither extreme left wing, they're sort of in the middle. They don't really have a lot of kids. They may have like 2 kids, right? 3 kids. They don't have a lot of kids. A lot of them choose not to have any children. They like to just live regular lives. Sometimes they go to the disco. They just like to live their lives and do what they want. They don't have kids, or they have very little kids. The Orthodox in Israel are actually having more kids than the Palestinians. Because for years we've been hearing about how the Palestinians are having all these kids and they're outbirthing the Jewish population, but that's not true. That's actually a myth. The Orthodox population in Israel is outgrowing the Palestinian population, and they're outgrowing the secular population in Israel. And what I read was that the Haredim, which is one of the groups of Orthodox Jews, one of the major factions of Orthodox Jews in Israel, the Haredim every 25 years doubles its population. So every 25 years, the Haredim are doubling. And that's just one faction of the Orthodox. There's other groups of Orthodox Jews, and they are having tremendous amounts of children. We're talking like 7, 8 kids or 10 kids per family. It's humongous. So they're winning the demographic war in Israel. They're beating the moderate Israelis. And the group that gets second place when it comes to birth are the Palestinians. So you see, the atheists are not necessarily atheists, but the secularists, the moderately religious Israelis, they're on the last place when it comes to birth rates. I don't want to say they're dying out, but they're getting reduced because of lower birth rates. Palestinians still increase because they still have kids, and the Orthodox Jews are on top when it comes to the demographic war, when it comes to the birth rate war, the population war. They're continuously booming their population. And that's why you will see a lot of young people in Israel who are into Orthodox Judaism, or a lot of young people who are extremely nationalistic, extremely religious, and not just religious for the Torah, and for the Talmud, but they're religious for their country. In America, you'll see a lot of older folks who are hardcore Republicans and things like that. In Israel, you'll see a lot of young people who are into that sort of thing, who are into that sort of nationalistic ideology. So it's very fascinating what's happening in Israel. It's sort of the reverse of what's happening in the West. So this is scaring the secular population. It's scaring them. And the one who is winning the demographic war is the one who's going to win eventually in the political war. And that's what's happening. That's why you see these sort of right-wing figures in the Knesset. That's why you see the majority ruling party in Israel being not liberals, but being rightists and conservatives. It's because the conservative population, the right-wing population, is really the majority. And it may be a majority in the sense that they're a little bit above the other side in terms of numbers. But as the years go by, as the decades go by, their population is only going to tremendously increase. As I said, every 25 years, the Haradim double in population. And this trend has been going on for a very long time. So there we go. 3 kids. Well, I'm saying they may have 3 kids. A lot of them don't. What's the birth rate? I mean, look at the birth rates of secular Jews. Like, for example, the Israeli family that I used to hang out with, they had 2 kids. 3 kids may be a lot, but try competing with people who are having 7, 8, 9, 10 kids per family. You're not going to win. So the question is, where is Israel going to be? Now, when I talk about a civil war in Israel, I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. And this is the problem with people. Anytime you start talking about this sort of subject, they always think, or they always assume, that you're speaking about the nearest future. That you're predicting that something's going to happen next week or next month. I'm not saying this is going to happen next week. Obviously not. I'm not saying that this is going to happen next month. I'm not saying this is going to happen next year or the next 5 years. I'm talking even long term. In the next 10 years, you may see a civil war in Israel. Next 15, 20 years, eventually something will blow up. Eventually something is going to blow up. When you have 2 sides that hate each other, and one side is out, I hate to say this word because I sound like Longshanks and Braveheart, but when you have one side that's outbreeding the other and beating them in the demographic war, then and that side that's winning the demographic war is beginning to dominate politically, then there is some kind of a conflict that should be expected. So it's not far-fetched at all. In Europe, is happening the same. Look, France and UK political scene is starting to be dominated by foreigners. The Israel civil war is not tomorrow. Already made plans for that. Let's see. Rashi is most racist to Christians. Yeah, I've heard that. Talmud is very anti-Christian. Talmud in Judaism is racist to Christian religion and other religions. The rabbi created Talmud. Rashi, who was from house of David, the first children of Israel. But going back to what I was talking about, what the case in Israel tells us is the importance of having kids. And for many years, anytime someone said, hey, have kids, they were laughed at, right? Well, people aren't going to be laughing about that anymore. Once they see it's not even race, guys. People make this about race. When you see your political worldview getting eclipsed by a group because that group is having more kids than you. Who's having more kids? Democrats or Republicans, right? They probably are having a low rate of children on both sides. But let's say conservatives are having more kids than Democrats. Eventually, those families are going to outpopulate the liberals, unless those kids are are indoctrinated into becoming liberals, then you wouldn't have. Then the liberals won't have to worry so much. And I think that's why the liberals are so obsessed with education, because they know, well, we're not having a lot of kids, but conservatives are religious people are having more kids. So we got to hit their kids to prevent their population from becoming greater than our own. But it's such an important thing. And here's the thing is, if Muslims are outbreeding you, well, that's your problem. If people say, oh, Mexicans are outbreeding. Well, they have a right to have kids. What are you going to do? Force them to be sterilized? Are you going to bring eugenics? And that's the problem with this sort of mentality that people have that, oh, Mexicans are having all the kids, or the Middle Eastern people are having all these kids. Do you want them to like not have kids? Do you want to prevent them? Do you want to force them to not have kids? Do you want to instate eugenic laws and force them to be sterilized? And at that point, then the suspicions about your type of rhetoric is true, that it's just dog whistling for eugenics and Nazism. You can't blame people for having kids. You can't say, well, you should stop, because they're not going to stop. Why would they stop? Because you tell them to. That's your problem. That's not their problem. Those people have a culture of having children. And believe it or not, the Mexican birth rate has been declining. But nonetheless, it's still higher than the white population, the white American population in the United States. And the great thing about it is that a lot of Mexicans grow up in this country, and a lot of them end up being very patriotic. A lot of them end up being very hardworking people. I want to say around half of America's police force consists of white Americans. But the other half consists of minorities. And when you watch a lot of police videos, you'll notice that there are a lot of Hispanics who are police officers. So, I don't have this worldview that just because, Mexicans are having more kids that they're going to destroy this country or anything like that. I've met Mexicans who are very good people, who are Republican, who are patriotic, who are family oriented. So I don't really get into this whole thing.